751-1041. Let's go and talk with Mary. Good morning, Mary. Welcome to 1041 The Truth.
Good morning, John. How are you today?
I'm doing good. What's going on?
Awesome. I just was listening to you talk about the people that were protesting and throughout the country and all the rallies that they had.
Yeah.
And I saw that you didn't really follow the case that closely, and I did. As a mother of 4 sons and 3 daughters, I have children that have been profiled like this, going into a department store and being followed around because my son is multi-ethnic, and I mean, and then I have a son that has blonde hair and blue eyes, and doesn't have the same problem, but he'll be with his brother, and he'll think that.
He'll think what?
They'll think he's stealing something. I literally had my son call me, and he's like, "Mom, these people are like following us around." And I was like, really? This is about 10 years ago. And I was like, okay. And when I got there, I asked the people, it was kind of an upscale store in the mall. I won't name the name. And they said, oh, we thought that, it's just suspicious because they kept looking around.
Right.
Okay. Isn't that what you do in a store? He had gotten a gift card, so he was looking for, for his birthday.
Right.
He wanted to make a purchase.
Well, how old was the kid?
He was 17, and my other son was 16.
Okay. So he had 2 young kids walking through a store, looking around, and they probably have people that shoplift, and so they saw them looking around, and they became concerned that they might be trying to shoplift.
I've looked in the store for many years and never had that. In fact, I was on the 2nd floor where I was. I don't have that problem.
Okay. Well, you're also older. I used to work for a music store years ago. I was a manager at a music store, and we had a problem, and we would have to profile, not racially, but profile individuals when they come in and they're perusing the store because we had a problem with theft, and so it's kind of what you do. Now, did they harass the kids?
They actually did. They asked them what they were doing there, and my son said, "Well, I'm looking for something to buy."
Right.
And he said, "Oh, you haven't tried anything on."
Okay.
And I thought that was quite interesting. I was like, okay, I buy stuff often and I don't try it on. But it was a choice that I made, and I see your point that there's theft and it happens a lot of times amongst teenagers.
Well, in the instance that you just provided, though, I failed to see where the store did anything wrong. It seems to me that you're making the assumption that they were profiling him based off off his skin color without having any shred of evidence that they were doing that.
Well, I see your point, but to me, I just felt like, we had shopped there many times before with my son that is just white, and we've never had a problem. But when he's with his brother that's multi-ethnic, it was a problem.
In that circumstance.
Exactly. And I've seen it throughout the years with groups of friends. You have 2 sons, and hopefully you don't see this someday. My sons have a plethora of friends of different ethnicities, of different colors. And, this is like 10, 15 years ago. Of course, in a state where it had the fewest minorities at the time, Idaho. And people if my kids were like 7 o'clock at night, there was a group of them playing basketball. Sometimes the police would just walk up, "Hey, what are you guys all doing?" One time he was labeled...
Wait, do that? Wait, say that again? What was the circumstance?
They were playing basketball.
What time of night?
7 o'clock at night in the summer.
Right.
And...
Where was this at?
This was in our housing subdivision, which was a gated community.
Okay.
And a neighbor had called and said, there's a group of boys out there, and there was about 14 of them at the time, just playing basketball outside. And I thought, why are the cops coming to our house? And they said, well, they didn't know if it was gang-related activity.
Right.
And I'm like, what? They're playing basketball.
Right. Well, okay. But somebody called the police officer and said, hey, there's a group of kids out here. You might want to check it out. Well, that's kind of the officer's job. So he went and checked it out.
For what? What were they
because
doing?
Somebody, I wasn't there. I don't know. I'm just saying that somebody called with a certain level of concern. Now, did the officer harass the kids?
He asked them what they were doing there, if a parent was home. Okay. I was out there. I was the parent, and I was out there.
Right.
I was thinking, I'm standing right here.
And then what happened?
Hello. And then he said, a neighbor had called.
Right.
And, he just saw like a gaggle of children.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And he said, he just wanted, someone was concerned and they didn't know. And I thought, wow, they could have called me or asked me.
And then what happened?
Nothing. He told the kids, have a great evening, and he left.
Okay, I don't want to keep talking to you, Mary, but first off, so far, with all the stories you've given, I don't see any example of anybody doing anything wrong, meaning anybody questioning the kids on either story doing anything wrong. I see no evidence of any sort of racial shenanigans going on whatsoever in the two stories that you provided me.
I see what you're saying. It's just that it's not just about race. Well, it is about racism in our country, because I think with these rallies and such,
Right.
I personally wouldn't go out there. Okay, that's my opinion, because I think that it's not just about black children. I think that it's about all races and ethnicities and people. And it's a huge issue in this country. And I hope that this makes a conversation, and it goes far beyond the tragic death of Trayvon Martin. I truly do. I did watch the case, and, my husband and I were discussing this. He's retired Air Force. He has been in law enforcement, and he's had to tackle my 17-year-old before. And my 17-year-old's larger than my husband. He didn't need to use his weapon. I heard that you say that the kid came back, you thought, and attacked him.
Right.
But we're not sure about that.
Okay.
There's different versions. I watched it faithfully. The point is there was no reason for this man to pull a gun on a 17-year-old kid.
Well, it sounds to me like he was feeling like his life was threatened, and then the jury obviously thought that was the case.
How was his life threatened by a 17-year-old kid?
If the kid was on top of him trying to beat the tar out of him, then yeah, his life was threatened. I mean, again, I don't want to get into the nuances of the case because I wasn't there and you weren't on the jury and I wasn't. But if you are going to ask the question, how is his life being threatened? Then yeah, if somebody's on top of him beating his head into the ground, then yeah, your life's threatened. That's what the jury ended up deciding.
Well, then that's ridiculous, because I'm sorry, I've gotten in fights before and I didn't need a gun to protect myself, and especially against a 17-year-old.
Maybe if you had one, you would have.
I do own a gun, and I wouldn't have needed it for that situation. But what it comes down to is Mr. Zimmerman was asked not to get out of his car. He admitted he did, and if he would have never gotten out of his car, Trayvon would be here today. Bottom line, end of story.
Well, maybe Trayvon would have been here today if he hadn't gone and confronted Zimmerman, if you want to go that route. And I don't want to get into the nuances of the trial, though.
How do we know he didn't confront Zimmerman? Zimmerman was the one that called. It was following him.
When you initially called, what was your problem that you had with me?
Making jokes of the rallies and the protests.
Yeah, I think they're ridiculous. I don't think they're accomplishing anything. I think they are self-serving for the individuals that are taking part in these rallies to make themselves feel better about themselves. I don't think they're serving any purpose whatsoever. People are allowed to do it. I'm not denying that. It's your right to go out there and protest. I personally think, though, they're wasting their time and they're incredibly self-serving.
Well, I could agree with that in one form, but on the other form, I hope that they take the opportunity, like I said, and it makes a conversation like this go far beyond the death of him. And I hope that people can talk about that. Racism is evident all over. I don't think our president has helped with it. I think he has incited it. I think that it's just a sad situation overall, and we lost, another person. So it's sad.
Okay, thanks.
It's really sad.
Mary, we can agree with that. It is sad. Seems to be a lot of projecting going on there. Let's just real quick. I know we're going to go long here, but Frank Antonori is called in and wants to chime in on this one.
Well, it's the sad reality of this country, John, when you have a group of folks that have been, of course, misled, I believe, by the media on this entire thing. But when you start looking at the world through the prism of racism, and every little thing in your world, you're out there looking for the slightest little inkling that you think that there's a racial sort of undertone to, you're going to find it every time. And the people that go through life like that, and it's sad that every little thing is seen through the prism of racism. And it's a distorted view of the world, and it's sad that we have people out there that look at it this way, and the president is a fine example of it. The reality is, if Mary would read the police report, and if she would look at the evidence list, she would understand that, and what was blown out of whack is NBC trying to draw this as a racial thing. Zimmerman did not know what race Trayvon Martin was when he first called the police. The police 911 operator asked him, and he had to go try to see, and he goes, I think he's black. And if NBC spliced that to create this racial sort of overtone that overwhelmed this trial. And nobody talks about Zimmerman. Bill Whittle I don't know if I shot a tweet out this weekend to a link on YouTube where Bill Little looks at the evidence and he looks at the background that was not allowed to be admitted into the trial that was the judge had denied, but of racism being non-existent in this case. Zimmerman is the most colorblind guy you can imagine if you look at his life history, but the media has painted him to such a degree and created this stir as a racial stir over this issue. What went wrong was a communication problem. That's what went wrong. Trayvon Martin, being a young youth, jumped on board of this. Hey, what do you want? And it was this respect versus, hey, you dissed me. This back and forth that went down between him and Zimmerman, and it escalated to the level of deadly force. And sadly, Zimmerman and both him and Martin escalated this to a degree where it resulted in violence, and Zimmerman felt his life was threatened and decided to make a decision that both of them now paid a heavy price for. Of course, sadly, Trayvon Martin paid with his life. And the reality is that this culture that we live in created that scenario. It wasn't Zimmerman and Martin. It was this, you're profiling me, you're a racist, why are you chasing me? And this everybody wants a fight.
Yeah.
And that's what led to this. And the both of them probably escalated this thing instead of diffusing the situation where it would have been, hey, why are you in the neighborhood? And Trayvon said, hey, dude, I'm just cutting through, man. I'll be out of here in 2 seconds. And it would have been over. But Trayvon says no. And if you listen to the testimony of the girl that was testifying, she was claiming she was telling him on the phone that the guy was probably a rapist. You need to confront him. And this is the sad thing. It's this escalating attitude in this society that we've developed through both the media and the culture now, where you can't even question anybody without them coming at you with a full frontal assault. And
yeah.
It's sad. It's sad. And that's what I think the thing is. People are losing this. Shut off MSNBC. They're lying to you. Go read the police report. It's available online. Go read the evidence report and go read the testimony. You will be astonished if you do that, and just stop listening to the media.
Hey, Frank, I'm up on it. I went long here. Thanks for calling in, though, buddy. I appreciate it.
Anytime, man. Take care.
Talk to you soon. 751-1041. I was profiled yesterday. It's true. Absolutely true. Numerous levels I was profiled yesterday. Somebody call Sharpton. More of the John Justice Show coming up on the Truth.